be one that think it's becoming ever more clear that we must address the serious potential impacts of fracking on the environment and on public health. Too often we've learned from our mistakes that by failing to think about these things up front, we have to contend with the impacts, the environmental impacts for decades. So I think it's important that we look at this, and I think it's especially true for our federal lands, which, as we know, belong to all Americans and support a wide range of activities, which we've heard you all today discuss in some part. And while I do feel that some of the requirements in the final rule need to be strengthened, I do think it's a step in the right direction. But one of the issues we've heard about is just the potential cost. So Director Cornsey, you estimate that your hydraulic fracturing rule will add about $11,000 to the cost of drilling a well. But to put this in context, what does the average well cost, the drilling of an average well cost?
So the Energy Information Administration from the Department of Energy estimates about $5.4 million, which frankly from what I hear when I'm out in the field is a low figure. We have seen others suggest that it's more between $8 or $12 million for a hydraulic fracturing well in a place like North Dakota. So
the thought that this would add $11,000 really is a very modest amount. And why is it so little? Why is this change to have such small economic impact, cost impact?
One of the things we haven't discussed today is that BLM had hydraulic fracturing regulations. They were about 2 sentences, and they were written in about 1982. And so they don't reflect a regulatory regime aimed at working with the modern practices that we have, which has been very important for the American economy. But we need to make sure that we are working with and keeping up with industry. And so many of the things that we've locked in, which are a basic baseline, are best management practices that industry already does. And so that's one of the reasons why the cost has ended up so low.
So just to address that issue, and that's good to hear. A couple other questions I wanted to ask, and it's really partly brought up by Congresswoman Loomis, but do the drilling regulations, do the BLM drilling rules, regulations preempt state rules?
They do not.
Does the new fracking rule preempt state rules?
No, ma'am.
Do companies follow state regulations when they're on BLM lands today?
They do.
So BLM is really just setting a baseline with the fracking rule, and states are free to set higher standards, or may already have set higher standards?
That's right. In some cases they have.
And will operators or states need variances to set higher standards?
No, they won't.
They won't. So the fracking rule is just an update to your existing rules, which, as you said, was very limited or not a lot of exculpation in it, but companies and states have been dealing with them for decades.
That's right.
I'd like to sort of change direction now and go to the issue of climate change. Climate change and increased annual temperatures are creating, as we know, significant management challenges for our public lands, from prolonged drought to devastating wildfires to insect infestations that imperil the health of our forests. We really can no longer afford to ignore the immediate and long-term effects of these changes. And I'm pleased that both of your budget requests make significant investments in this regard. So I'd like both of you to talk about what we need to be doing to make our public lands more resilient, and how do your budget requests support that work? I guess I'll give you each 30 seconds.
Well, just quickly then, first of all, it's with our investment in our research and development to continue to have the science to understand how the changing climate is affecting our nation's forests, and then to be able to use that information and the restoration efforts. In some cases, it's not so much to restore to the past, but it's more to restore to the future, where we're going to have to make some tough decisions at times to really maybe think about planting a different species than what we had on that site in the past, because as we look forward with the information that we have, we may have to have a different mix of species in our forests than what we've had in the past. That's just one example. The other key thing is also with dealing with invasives. As we see that with climate change, it seems to be more and more favorable for the invasives that come through our ports. For instance, the emerald ash borer that we have here in the east, it was held in check by many years because of cold winters. It's now made it all the way to Canada.
And does your budget allow you to do that, or is it really diverting so much into fires that might make it more difficult?
We're still maintaining an adequate level of funding for research, but there's no question the impact of our fire suppression has had on our budgets. Since 2003, the 10-year average has increased by over $700 million. And that's just a little over 10 years. Once again, this year we had it increased by $115 million. In a constrained budget, funding for that fire suppression has a direct impact on all of our programs, not only our research, but our ability to manage our forests, provide the recreational offerings, the settings. And so it's having a devastating effect on our ability to manage and carry out our public service responsibilities.
My time is up, so I'll
Would you like to finish this, Mr.
well,
Perez?
Mr. Cornsey, go ahead then. Thank you.
Sure, I'll give you just a very quick snippet on a few things we're working on. One is our investment in renewable energy. We have about $30 million in our budget to continue the progress of our renewable energy program. Since 2009, we've approved 52 large-scale renewable energy projects, which converts to enough power for more than 4 million homes in America. So that is a huge step forward using clean energy for that power generation as those projects come online. And then something else we're doing is we're looking at the landscapes that we manage with the Forest Service and with others and doing what we call eco-regional assessments. We're looking at where have the trends been in the past in terms of fire and species and resilience, and looking towards the future and what the data and the science that's out there tells us are the smartest places to make investments. So we're working with partners all across the board to do those, and hopefully that will allow us to be adaptive as we move forward.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. Following up, Mr. Carranz again on the previous